It is time for another episode of the Cultural Hall, an Articles of News episode. And I want to tease before I tell you who my co-host is, though if you're watching on YouTube and you are subscribed, you already know it's Verlin. Now I've told you, crap, where did I go wrong in all this? We have a great interview guest signed up. You'll remember the female chaplain episode of, I don't know how long ago that was. Couple months, maybe?
Long time ago.
What, was it a long time ago?
Great episode. Yeah, I'm thinking it was before I moved. So it's like 6 months ago, 7 months ago.
Man, where does time go? Jenna Carson was her name.
Crazy.
Well, there is another female chaplain. The first female chaplain of color is going to be a future guest of the Cultural Hall. So look forward to that interview. If you loved the Jenna Carson one, look forward in anticipation of Sierra Larson. If you did not listen to the Jenna Carson, go back and listen to it. More than just Verlin have said one of the best episodes of the Cultural Hall. So go and check that out.
Fantastic.
This episode is not fantastic. It is a news. I'm just joking. Verlin, come on. It's love. It's tease. It is a
You have some
episode.
other fantastic interviews coming up. I won't tease the individuals, but I know you've got several that are
Well,
that you're
in the
working
fire,
on.
though, neither of those two have replied back. So we'll see.
Okay,
We'll see
I
how
will
this goes.
harass both
Yeah.
of them dutifully.
Yes.
Yes.
I think I've replied to both of them. One of them I know for sure. The other one I'm not positive. So tread lightly. So we talk about news within this, but in the first part, we lovingly call it opening exercises, where we get to talk about whatever we would like. I would love to know what you feel pertinent to discuss at this time.
Oh my gosh.
What's your thing? What's your jam?
Well, since last time we spent time, talking about how job searches are miserable.
Yes.
Then I've got a little bit of an update on the job search front.
And
so I had been working with a company. We got it down to 2 candidates. I was really excited about it.
Shoot.
And I was in New York City for a trade event over the weekend, an industry event that I've gone to for 30 years. And I opened my email at the beginning of a day, ready to be excited, and they said, "We chose the other guy."
Boo.
So, of course, I felt miserable in that moment. I'm like, how am I going to deal with the rest of the day? Well, as usual, I'll just suck it up, internalize it, and just move on.
Yeah.
And throughout the rest of the day, I received 3 full-time job offers.
Look at you.
So now I have the dilemma.
Oh, yeah. Do you want me to solve it for you?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Be vague. Give me the 3. I'm good. I'm great at this. My wife says I am great about giving my opinion when it is not wanted.
Okay.
So
I'll give you 3. You 3. Software startup company, 150 people, 19 million in revenue, wants to do 25 in the next year, likely sell the company in 3 to 4 years.
Okay. Do you get any sort of that if they do sell it and you help build to that? Okay.
I refuse to work there unless I do. So,
okay.
Yes.
Second,
software startup company, 2 million in revenue, exciting space, close to what I've done previously. About 25 people in the company. They want me to have a bigger role, and their plan is to sell the company in 3 to 4 years.
Okay. Is there lots of room for growth? Could they 10x the 2 million in
easily?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Listen, I'm job coaching right now, so give me the third one. Here we go.
Third one is a company that's been around 100 years. What they do is they're a broker for reselling hardware for this industry, technology hardware, into tons of resellers around the world. They're probably a $2 billion organization. They're not going to drive a bunch of growth, and they won't give me any ownership of the company. And I could work there for the next 5 years or as long as I want for a salary.
Sure. But probably good amount of money, maybe not as challenging as some of the other ones, but pays you what you're worth and you go to it. So not number 3. We're not doing number 3.
And then number 4, I had another recruiter reach out to me on that same day and say, I'd really like to talk to you. And so I have that call tomorrow.
Okay. So it could be a 4th. So
could be.
So we're going to figure it out though, barring that number 4 doesn't maybe work. We know we don't want number 3. Number 3 sounds like bureaucracy, long time, lots of things. Great, stable. If 1 and 2 didn't work out, 3 would be just fine, but we don't want to be
fallback
there.
position.
Yeah. So for me, I would do this. If you had to pick one right now, I would want to know which one you would want, 1 or 2. Quick, don't overthink it. 1 or 2, go.
I haven't been able to figure it out.
I'm gonna kill your family. 1 or 2.
Two.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
And sorry that got so graphic. That sort of is a teasing of later
Thank
some of
you.
the stuff that we're going to
Yes,
talk about.
it is. It is.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
So to me,
Oh,
assuming that all things are relatively equal, like you don't have to move,
yeah, they are.
these are all things
Yeah.
within your skill set, etc.
They'll all pay enough to support my
Yeah,
family.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
too, because if it's something that with you and the ownership that you're able to get within the company and it comes around in, and it ends up doing 20 million or 16
Yep.
million when they sell it and you get a proportional piece of it, I
Yep.
think it's fun
Yep.
because it's smaller, so you can in fact make more change and gear and do the trajectory, but also too, you stand to make more based on where you're getting in at and where it's going to be in
You're,
three,
you're
4 years.
being very, very rational. So I
Yeah,
appreciate that. I
yeah,
appreciate that.
but not number three. Don't. You're
No,
better than
no,
number three.
that'll be the fallback.
Yeah.
Now here's my worry. So this
Okay.
happened to me, a similar thing happened to me 30 years ago
Okay.
when I graduated from graduate school. I
Uh-huh.
had 3 job offers.
Is this when Steve Jobs came to you and said, "Hey, there's this thing called Apple," and you're like, "Bah, that's ridiculous." And
It wasn't
then
Steve Jobs,
and
but
then Bill
option.
Gates came to you and you were like, "Screw you, Bill." And you're like, "What the?" Now you're coming back and wishing, "No, now I need to know who it was."
Well, you were pretty close. So number one, Citibank, this was
Uh-huh.
just as Citibank was really getting started, came to me
Mhm.
and said, "We've got a position for you."
Yeah, but you don't know.
Goldman
Yeah.
Sachs, which is the premier investment banker in the world, came
Yeah.
to me. The job I would be taking was to train to take over the position of a member of the church. In fact, he was the bishop of the Philadelphia First Ward at the time,
Hmm.
who I would take over his book of business and be a millionaire within 2 years.
Sure.
And then number three was a ho-hum returning back to IBM, although in a different position,
Hmm.
kind of the fallback plan.
Sure.
So in classic way the Lord has worked with me throughout my life, I went to the temple, I did all the things, I said the prayers, I fasted, all that kind of stuff. Susan
Hmm.
and I both did. We felt great about the Citibank position. I
Uh-huh.
took it. It was going to move us back to California, which we were excited about. And 1 week later, they called and said, "Thank you for accepting the position. We're sorry, we've had a restructuring and the position no longer exists.
Ooh.
Um, you have to go find another job." Well, by then I had told Goldman Sachs no thank you,
Mm.
and actually felt quite inspired to say no thank you to them. That was
Mhm.
probably the strongest prompting I had.
Sure.
I thought, yes, I'll be rich, but I'll be divorced, and my children will hate me in
Sure.
10 years.
So a better life for Susan, but for you
So,
personally, yeah.
yes, exactly, exactly. I never heard it put that way.
Yeah.
The Lord forced me into the third choice, which was the IBM choice, which made all the difference and has set up the entire rest of my career and all the fun stuff I've done since then.
Yeah.
So,
So all jokes aside, I mean, I think that yeah, obviously knowing how you do it, and I appreciate you being vulnerable enough to share, hey, this is the process that we go through with it. I think that
yeah,
you do. I think you go, oh, all right, maybe two. And then you start to go towards two. And just because you're accepting two doesn't mean that two will still exist in a week's time or anything
that's
like
right.
that. And, you're open to what God will guide you towards, and you just go, yeah, all right, I'm thinking two. Oh, three. Oh, four. Oh, there's a fifth. I had no idea, but I
That's the
think
way it works.
yeah,
That's the lesson I've learned in my life. Yeah,
yeah, good for
absolutely.
you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So we'll see. And could all of them fall through? Of course
yes,
they could. No paper signed yet, and that's just the way the world works.
yeah,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, there was some other good related news, two other bits of news. So the startup I worked for previously, they
Mhm.
announced on Friday that Motorola purchased them. And as part of working for that company, I had equity ownership in that company as
Yeah,
well.
you did.
It's not generational wealth, but it certainly will help the Youd family budget, which
Sure.
is wonderful. And then something not so distant related, one of the startups I worked for, let's just say it was a terrible experience, and it almost went to a lawsuit, and we believe we've reached a settlement,
That's
which is
great.
good news for the Youd family as well. So
So, let me paint a different picture for
paint
you.
away.
Just
Are you
throwing
painting
this
by
out here.
numbers or what are you doing?
Yeah, no, I mean, by these financial numbers, here's the deal.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, 5 years, as we discussed the last time that we chatted, like
Hmm.
that is a good age to say thank you. I'm going to go ahead and exit this. I'm, banking the money kind of thing.
Yep.
And to me, I go, man, Verlin, geez, 5 years, whatever, do whatever, make the bag, and then turn to Susan in 5 years and be like, "We out. Let's
Yep,
go.
that's the plan.
We're going to Africa, and we're
We're
picking
going
where
to
we're gonna
Haiti. We're
go."
going to wherever
Yeah.
wherever we
You
want to
still
go.
can't go
Yep.
to Haiti, Verlin. You keep
I
pushing.
can dream.
They won't
I can
allow
dream.
Americans in Haiti right now,
We
especially
can
those
dream.
that look like you. Not right now. It will return to that. Cuba, maybe Cuba. Maybe you could be a gateway into
Maybe
Cuba. I don't know.
Cuba. Yeah.
But you look at it from that way, right? 'Cause who
Absolutely.
knows? It could
Yeah.
very well be something like that where he's like, and this is not prosperity doctrine, everybody, but where God's like, "Hey, Verlin, I got you. We're going to make you some great change here. Little scratch on the side. And in 5 years' time, it's going to implode. And I'm going to need you to go to insert wherever the place is. And then that's it. And then none of
I'm
it
good
matters."
with that. I'm good with that.
Yeah. Nice.
Yep.
Well, people that are watching this on video will appreciate what I'm about to show you. Those that are just listening, I need you to just sort of picture a Rubbermaid container. I think they're 25 gallons. I got to lean over here real quick. Hang on. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
At least it's not full of whole wheat. You wouldn't have been able to pick that up.
No, I would not.
Or powdered milk or rice.
So here's the thing. This is my opening exercise thing. Then I promise we'll get to the articles of news. So that Rubbermaid container full of like
miscellaneous cords for audio and power.
No. I wish that would be much easier. You know how you have papers, whether they be school papers or letters from
cards.
people or report cards or pictures of, or I ran
Your nieces
a race.
and nephews sent you a picture that they drew in sacrament meeting.
That is what that thing is chock full of. A lot of college stuff. Times I was in the school newspaper, blah, blah, blah. I am doing the thing in 2025.
Of course you are.
And one of the things that I'm doing is I want to get rid of so many things. The fires in California have certainly echoed to me that it's like, it's all stuff, but it is stuff that, if I'm going to pick, I'd like to have in some form or fashion, should an incident or accident occur. So I'm going through it. A lot of it is just garbage that I've never just emotionally taken the time to look at and go through. Like I found a couple, like, "I love you so much" cards from my first wife. And I was like, and it was funny, the visceral response of like tearing them up and throwing them in the garbage. How good that felt.
Oh, you didn't burn them?
No,
didn't? I would have found a lighter, man.
Yeah. I've thought about it, but too much mess and not worth it. I just was like, let's tear this and toss it. But it's also things like, like my college acceptance letter. And it's not a big deal. I don't care a ton about it, but I think I'm going to scan it. Anyway.
Nice. Yeah.
That kind of stuff takes so long to go through. From the what even is this to do I want to keep this to will anyone care about this? And then, because the majority of this stuff is papers or pictures or those things, like there's an added step because I want to trash it. There will be a few things. There's like this, my book about me that I did in second grade where I illustrated it. And I like Pop-Tarts,
And you said, I want to be the host of a show in podcast form.
100% it's in there.
Yeah,
and then
there
people
you
are
go.
like, "What's a podcast?" I'm like, "You'll know when you're older."
That's right.
So some of those things I'll care, but I've already gone one time to the Family Search Center right by my house, and the scanners that they have there, light work out of it. Just done.
Wow.
200 photos is what I did in my first session.
Too cool.
27 minutes. And that part of the reason why it took that long was because they were of different sizes and all that stuff. But then, you know what I did? I took out about 175 of those photos and threw them in the garbage and kept the 25 because they were older or family or something like that. And I said, done. I'm done with this. I don't need these other ones. And it's great. I'm doing the thing.
That's awesome.
Family Search. Awesome. Isn't it about time? Let's take a break. I want to tease just a little bit. We have articles of news that we will be getting to, of course, as we always do. Do we do a lot? No. Are we going to try to do a lot? Yes. Things like 1 million meals. Put your pinky towards your lip. 1 million meals. We've got more about Ruby Franke. We've got things like the inauguration, service for the primary, and Verlin wants to really talk about American Primeval. That is why he looks the way he looks. He binged it all night, has not slept. We'll take a break and we'll come back. Really?
Close.
Okay. We'll come back. We'll talk about it coming up in the second half of Articles of News. bestdjinutah.com is the website. That is where you go if you would like me to come and DJ your event. Now, will I do a family reunion where you all wear the same t-shirts? You bet I will. Will I travel to wherever you're at? Uh-huh. Am I reasonable as far as what I cost? Yes. Yes. Do I bring a good time? Yeah, all the things. Listen, Best DJ in Utah, it's my company. It's a thing I do that allows me to be able to have the time to do the cultural hall. So if someone's getting married, you think, man, they need a great DJ. You're throwing a party, whether it's a 50th or 60th or 40th or 20th or whatever the party is. I've done them all and would love to be able to do that. An anniversary party, certainly done those. I did a baptism in 2023. Yeah, we did a big dance party at a baptism. Spoiler, not a Mormon baptism, but it was fun nonetheless. bestdjinutah.com is a website. I will get back to you within 24 hours with a quote. Come on now. bestdjinutah.com. Here in the second half of Articles of News, we do actual articles of news. Hit it, Peter Breinholt.
You can't lose articles of news.
And away we go. This may be the most news we've ever crammed into an articles of news. I probably shouldn't have said
Let's
that.
do it.
Now
Let's
there's
do
no
it.
way we will. American Primeval, over on the Netflix. It is a historical fictionalization of Utah / the Wild Wild West in the mid 1800s. Six episodes, I want to say. Characters like Brigham Young, Jim Bridger, and others. Here is my experience with it. We're only one episode in, and here is why. The majority of my wife and I's television viewing occurs at night, and this is not, I feel like, a show you can watch at night.
I guess I have dulled my sensitivities, but I watched the first 3 episodes last night between the hours of 10 p.m. and 1 a.m.
Yeah, and the reason why you're up till 1 a.m. is because you started it at 10 p.m.
Well, I have, I don't know what it is, whether it's my pioneer heritage. Number one, I love historical fiction.
Sure.
Number two, I love movies and television, especially high production television.
Sure.
Number three, I really just love history. I love learning about things that happen in history, and I love the creative process of people who write and produce historical fiction. Spoiler alert, I've read all of Orson Scott Card's historical fiction, the Women of the Bible series, and etc. But yeah, this show, it's as modern a production as you can get in terms of production value. I don't know about you, but the scene when they have the massacre, the first one.
We should say, spoiler, everyone.
Spoiler.
For the next little bit as we talk about
spoiler.
this. Spoiler.
Good point. Good point. And I won't go into the detail. That scene may be the best Wild West fight scene I've ever seen in my entire life. The production, the way that they did it, I literally felt like I was in the middle of it and I could have been shot at any moment. The way that they pulled it off.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The production value of it. I love the conversations. I can't tell you how many podcasts I've listened to already, and different online influencers who are like, here's our take on it. Here's why we don't like it. Here's what we do love about it. I love having the conversation about it. I think I echo the sentiment of a lot of people when it's historical fiction. And this is why I feel this way about this. I worry that I don't think it's the intelligence of people, but like they don't question something. But when they take historical fiction for fact, I think it is a dangerous thing. And certainly if they formulate attitudes towards Mormon people because of a historical fiction, like I think that can be dangerous. So, to the extent that people are doing that, I think that it's, I wouldn't say less favorable towards the church, but I don't care for it. I wish that people would kind of, be able to go, oh, this is TV. What is real about this? Take the time to do it. But I know lots of people don't take that time.
They don't. And certainly this is not David McCullough, biography historical fiction. I mean, I've read Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, all the presidents that McCullough has written, and he does very fact-based, well-researched historical fiction, and he just fills in the white spaces generally. This is 99.9999% fiction.
Yeah.
And it is, I would call it historically, quote, inspired. Right, or influenced. but there is nothing factual about anything that's covered in this. The
Oh,
locations
well,
are wrong.
now that's
The
not true.
locations are wrong. The groups are
Sure.
wrong. The details are wrong. The players are wrong. Everything is
There was
wrong.
Brigham Young. There was
Okay, he
Jim Bridger.
existed. He
There was
existed.
a Fort
He
Bridger.
existed. It existed.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes,
yeah, you're right
it's
though.
inspired,
Yeah.
but the massacre that they talk about, again, spoiler alert, they're trying to talk about the Meadow Mountain massacre or
Mhm.
Mountain Meadows massacre. Um, in reality, it happened in southern Utah near Cedar City.
Mhm.
In this recounting, it happens near Wyoming,
Yeah.
so
Or I think
nowhere
even in
close.
Wyoming, right?
Yeah,
It's
and
like,
then
that's not, yeah.
there's three massacres that occur. At least so far, I've seen three. Maybe there's more. They claim they're all interrelated. There weren't separate massacres. There was one massacre. And I've heard some people saying, well, they didn't even make it as bad as it really was. Well, you never make it as bad as it really was. If you did, it would have an NA rating and no one could watch it
Sure.
because it was absolutely horrific. Um, but they got it all wrong
Yeah.
either way. And
Yeah. I was going to say, and in fairness, there were several massacres, not necessarily like the Mountain Meadows massacre, but previous guest, Darren Perry, one of the Shoshone elders, talked about the Bear River massacre. So that
yes,
certainly was not Mountain
yes,
Meadows massacre, and certainly of and around that time. Valuable episode to listen to. We've actually had him on a couple of times. Find links for that in the show notes. Um, I've heard raving reviews about the Native American depictions in this. The language
I
is right.
liked that. I liked that part. Yeah.
The dressing of the Native American people also has been spot on. Not necessarily the correct tribes in the areas that they've been. I found that to be interesting that that's the case.
Yeah.
But again, this is something that likely we would not be sitting down and talking about were it not for this show. Is it very gory? Yes, it is. Is it for everyone? No, it is not.
Mm-mm.
But 6 episodes, you
No.
could binge it in a day. If you're Verlin,
You
binge
could.
it in a
Yeah.
24-hour
My
period.
plan is to finish it this evening. I
Nice.
will. The other thing that they don't do that I think we all have a terrible time, and it goes back to your comment about people jumping in and drawing conclusions. We never do this in a historical context.
Mm.
And the historical context here, which I've heard others talk about, and in fact, I've heard, oh gosh, the authors of Vengeance is Mine
Yeah,
and the
Barbara
Mountain Meadow
Jones Brown
Massacre
and Richard Turley.
and Richard Turley. I've heard them talk about it. And when they talk about the historical context, they say, make no mistake, the historical context was this was an incredibly violent period of history.
Yeah.
The area was incredibly violent. The things that happened were violent. None of us understand the level of violence that was very common in the day-to-day life of people, particularly in this area at this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so part of the context.
What I was going to say and then didn't, but I'll wrap it out with this. Do you remember the Work and the Glory series?
Absolutely. Yeah.
A lot of people really loved it, but it's a fictionalized family that lived around the time of Joseph Smith. And I can remember being on my mission and someone telling us about, well, the blank family, they probably lived over here. And I just was like, it's not okay. We've got a problem. This did
Yep.
not translate the
Yep.
way that it needed to.
Oh,
So,
wonderful series for giving some people a different way of looking at the restoration, but not factual.
yeah. Yep. So the next story you wanted to talk about, because I do let whoever co-hosts with me be able to pick, and then I go, yeah, maybe not. Maybe we're not doing this. We're putting the primary kids to work, which I think it's about time. Let's put those kids to work. Come on.
I think this is fabulous.
Yes.
I'm old enough, and maybe some of your listeners are. I remember being in primary and bringing pennies and nickels and dimes to church on Sunday. And we would fill up this box or a jar full of pennies and dimes and nickels. And we were filling it up every week for the Primary Children's Hospital in Utah.
Mhm.
And we got to see it fill up. And we felt really good about ourselves contributing to these children far away from us who we knew we were helping. And that made an impression on me. And I'm sure it made an impression on most others who participated in that. The church is now bringing back and asking all primaries around the world to have some kind of service activity. And they've given some guidance to that service activity. There's a whole FAQ, frequently asked questions document that they've provided talking about what size it needs to be, how it should be organized, can they do it with others? And the amazing thing is they've made it incredibly flexible. If you have a primary of 3 kids, you can do a little project with 3 kids at one of your Sunday meetings. If
Mhm.
you want to pull together the whole stake, you can do that. If you want to do it with youth groups from other church congregations, you can do that. You can literally pick anything you want.
Yeah, the
And
important thing, just teaching our kids and establishing a pattern of like, hey, sometimes we do stuff for us and sometimes we do things for other people.
exactly, exactly. And in our stake, they've asked the Just Serve organization to help them organize a little bit and get some ideas for what they can do and what they should be doing. And so my wife's been involved already pulling that together. My daughter
Jeez.
is a primary president in a little ward in the middle of New Mexico, and she's already working on it.
Wow.
And so this energy is ramping up, and I'm hoping they make this an annual thing. Wouldn't that be awesome that
I
they
think,
kind
yeah,
of
I think they definitely will and
and
should.
yeah, and then wrap families into it
Sure.
and let the families be part of this and not just the primary children themselves. I think it's a great thing to do.
Yeah, I think though I will say this about that, I think so the church sort of has that day in September that we leaned really heavily into as a day of service a few years ago, and some people are still doing that. I think that you'll see
Right.
that continue to return. I hope that they don't uh I I hope that they do it only as primary and keep it only as primary because to me, like I think
Yeah.
it's great to have our primary kids and maybe we lump them with us when we do the church-wide thing in September.
Hmm.
But I think that it's incredible, an incredible lesson, an incredible experience for the primary kids to do it as primary kids, not with dad, not with mom, and maybe they're there helping, but it is a primary forward sort of service event as opposed to the family because I think it hits different than you're doing it within your family or with the church as a whole. To just
Yeah,
have
I
kids
agree. That's a good
packing
point.
lunches or painting of this or whatever the thing may be, I think that's incredible.
Absolutely. I think you've got a good point. That's a great way to approach it.
Well, and as an interfaith thing, I love that idea. The idea of whatever they call it primary in the Baptist church. And, we've got an Islamic center by my home to have the whatever they call primary kids in the Islamic, community and have just, I mean, it sounds like a nightmare of a thing
That
that
would
I
be
never want to
awesome.
be at. But
Oh,
how cool would it be to just have hundreds of kids working alongside each other and doing thing? That is
it'd be
incredible.
fantastic.
I'd,
Fantastic.
I'd play music
Yeah.
for it.
Oh, yeah.
Anything that keeps the kids away from me. No, thank you. Just teasing. Sort
So
of.
you're saying you'd put up a plexiglass wall
Yeah,
around the
yeah.
equipment?
You can't go past this line, kids. Are we having a good time? Can't go past this line, kids. Can't
Perfect.
go past.
Perfect.
Uh, the next story we want to talk about was the medical equipment in Ghana. I'll let you take this whole story. I keep kind of jumping in on
No,
stuff.
you're welcome to jump in. That's why we have the banter here. So the church has donated some medical equipment to a regional clinic in Ghana. Um, the ceremony was just held on January 10th, just a few days ago. They're saying the donation will benefit more than 450 patients a month.
Jeez.
Included in the donation were maternity delivery beds, an ultrasound scanner, a blood chemistry analysis machine, a vaccine refrigerator, autoclaves for cleaning and sterilizing things, computers, drip stands, and much, much more. They're saying it serves over 12,000 residents and boarding school students, and they'd been struggling to keep up because all of the equipment they had, of course, was meager and outdated.
Mm.
And they're dealing with patients with bad diseases we hear about, whether that's malaria, bronchitis, diabetes, I'm sure yellow fever, probably all the other parasitical diseases that occur in a country like that. And this will help them to try to get ahead of that and help a large community of people. And what I thought was touching was they had a couple of leaders of this community talk about. Well, I'll read one of the quotes.
Mhm.
He says, "This is the Honorable. His name I love is Wisdom Kobena Wyoming." And he says, "We were just hopeful and operating on faith that one day God would smile beautifully on us. And I think this is the day. The church has been so friendly to this municipality. You were really there for us when we had the unfortunate Akasambo spillage that took place. With this also happening now, it appears our relationship is forever. and we thank you very, very much. So they see this, it isn't a one-time thing. This is the church helping this community multiple times, showing we're not just there to donate something and get glory. We're here to be your friend and to support you for the long term.
Later in the article, it talks about that there's one person that's like, hey, I'm thinking about maybe going to this church in the community because of how great they've been. I think that is great. And, we as a church, we've sort of, talked about how, and then did the person convert? And then we sort of build up these stories. But I think it's so secondary when you recognize that what the church is donating is saving and changing the lives of like at least 450 people a month.
At least, yeah.
So doing some quick math with me here, that would be like 5,400 people a year. And then those are people that are able to continue to live and help those and so on and so on. It's just exponential, the impact that has. And I just, for all the naysayers that would say, oh, they could do more. Yes, they could. 1,000% they could do more.
And this presents the perfect model that we should be using not only in our ministering assignments. It's not about bringing someone back to activity. It's about being their friend, ministering and serving, or just our neighbors every day, whoever they may be.
Yeah. You want to talk about the million meals?
I do.
Million meals.
The article here talks about this million meals that the church organized along with Silicon Slopes to donate to the Utah Food Bank in Salt Lake City, and I think that's fabulous. A million meals, a million of anything is important.
Huge.
But I think they buried the lead in this article because they mention elsewhere in the article that they did another donation. And the other donation was $2.8 million to the Utah Lunch Debt Relief Fund in hopes of alleviating school lunch debt in Utah. To me, that seems a lot bigger. What do you think? Which one is the bigger story, a million meals or 2.8 million in school children's lunch or breakfast debt?
Oh, Verlin, why does there have to be a bigger or one that's better?
You made me make a choice earlier. Gun to your head. Family's going to die. Which one?
Oh, my gosh. Geez. Now I feel the pressure that I put on you. So to me, I guess, I would go the 2.8 because it's a bigger number. But I also would say what I love about this, and Silicon Slopes, for people who don't know, Silicon Valley is California and it's all the tech stuff. In Utah, there is a portion of Utah that's called Silicon Slopes, and it's where a lot of these places that would make offers to Verlin for jobs but not actually hire him, where their offices
Pleasant Grove to Draper, right?
Yeah.
Pleasant Grove to Draper along I-15.
Yeah, they have their headquarters there and their business offices there, etc. And the Silicon Slopes in particular is, I think it's like a business community. I think you have to buy membership into it. It's not just a place.
It sounds like an association now.
Yeah, there is a convention that they do where they bring in big name keynote speakers and smaller folks. And it's what Elder Bednar spoke at last year that people are like, wow, we're going to wring our hands that he's speaking at this thing. So to me, the 2.8 million, I think it is maybe a grander number, but I love that, 1 million meals is likely going towards those with food insecurities completely. And that I think the school lunches, I think it serves probably some of that community that would have the food insecurity, but it's also just those that are maybe on that lower income. They're doing their best to be able to take care of these things. A medical something came up, a poor planning of a something came up, a something else came up. And unfortunately, these kids, what used to be happening is they would come through the lunch line, they'd run their card, and then you got someone going, not enough money in your account, and not allowing kids to eat. Now, I am a huge fan of people being financially responsible. I am not we'll just give everyone everything and we should do it. Like, I'm not label me whatever you would be. But I do think that there's a certain thing with kids that we should not put that on kids ever. A 7-year-old doesn't go, you're right. My parents could make more fiscally responsible choices, and then I would be able to, they should not have to pay the consequences in that respect for choices made without them. They should be able to go in an educational setting, swipe a card, and get food and eat that food. And that food should be nutritious, and that food should not be, I mean, that's a whole different conversation, but it should be things that will help them to be full and to be able to focus. And they should not have to worry about, well, you don't have, and I don't know why that's the
Yeah.
voice, but
Yeah.
it is.
Well, and I'm not denigrating either project. I think both are beautiful, both
Incredible.
are wonderful. I'm sure you may have done this. I've done it several times now, where an organization, our stake did it just a few months ago, will go and package these meals. And we packaged, I think, in the course of a couple of hours, 50,000 meals
Jeez.
or something like that.
Incredible.
We rang a bell every 10,000 meals. It was awesome.
Hmm.
It doesn't take a lot of time. It doesn't take a lot of effort. To be honest, it's a combination of rice, some dried vegetables, some dried vitamin powder. I think there's one other ingredient, and then you seal it up, and they go in boxes and they're shipped all over the world.
Yeah.
Which is great. It's wonderful. It's giving people some staples and at least the very minimum that they could be given for a meal.
It dawns on me as we're chatting, Jeanette Bott, the head of the Utah Food Bank, not as far as I'm aware, I think she was raised Catholic, but I don't think a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I would call her a friendly-ish acquaintance to me. That would be worthwhile for me, I think, to have her on as an episode and talk about, working with the organization and the power that the church can have. I'm going to bookmark that in my brain and reach out to her and have that conversation. She herself came from being a single mom who relied upon a food bank, and then
That's awesome.
And said, if I ever get the chance to make a difference, I'm going to, and then has made that her entire life's thrust. So great article. Again, link in the show notes.
Great person to interview and find out how can we best help. I mean, everyone needs to help differently. Some people are good at going to one of these events and making meals. Other people are better at just writing a check. I have a good friend who is associated with the charity, the foundation that I work with some friends, and we could do trips around the world to help in these locations. And she goes, "I'll never go on a trip. It's not my gig." But she said, "I'm happy to write checks to help other people do it."
Sure.
So,
and they need all kinds of people.
Absolutely.
I've gone out and sorted the cans, and that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And then there are other times that I'm like, I haven't done that for a while, and I'm like, $25, that'll buy some peanut butter, and that's great too, right? I mean, they don't need.
I'm sorry, you said sorting the cans, and it reminded me we had a youth activity to do this like 20 years ago, and we had a bunch of youth sorting cans, and they started throwing cans like footballs, putting a spiral on them.
Oh no.
And somebody missed the catch, and it hit another kid, and they went to the hospital with a concussion. But,
oh, geez.
So every time I think of sorting cans, that's what comes to mind.
We did not do that. In fact, I think they were very, very specific about how close you could be to the different sorting bins. And maybe it was because of those kids.
It could be.
Inauguration now just 4 days away as we record this. The Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square, not invited because President Trump doesn't need us. He needed us the first time around. Now he's got Carrie Underwood. He's got the Village People. He doesn't need the likes of the Tab Cats.
The Village People cracked me up when I saw that. I thought, okay, Carrie Underwood, I get Lee Greenwood because, he's used their songs on the campaign trail. But I would not have.
And by the way, for people who don't know, Lee Greenwood, God Bless the USA, the song that Ronald Reagan did not know the words to, but was always shown on TV not knowing the words to. One of my favorite things. I remember that as a 7-year-old kid. And or like 8-year-old kid, and I just remember going, why isn't that guy? He's the president. Why is he not singing the words to this song? I don't think he ever learned them.
I don't think he did.
But uninvited.
Perfect. They're uninvited. Yeah, you're right. They needed him last time. They had been turned down by everybody, and this time everyone wants to clamor in and get on the wagon. So
now let me ask you this about that, because it was quite the thing, and I've seen several people celebrating the fact. These people obviously not fans of President Trump, celebrating the fact that we're not involved this time. They had a lot of, issues and feelings about it. Famously, there was a soprano who said, I'm not going, I'm not doing it. And it would be interesting to sort of revisit this whole thing with her. Do you think any of it had to do with the church saying, hey, listen, we are not a fan of the spotlight that this may be, or do you think it was Hey, I keep checking the mailbox. There's not anything out here for us. Did you want? We can be.
No, what I'm thinking is I'm thinking the current president and general manager of the choir is probably wiping his brow and saying, we did not receive an invite, thank goodness. It
Yeah,
kept them out of making an awkward decision.
yeah,
Now, I don't know about you. For me, I still honor the office of the president,
of course.
regardless of who it is. And it doesn't matter to me if President Clinton would have asked me to do it, President Obama, President Reagan, President Trump. If they said, I want you to attend for this reason and sit on the stand, I would feel almost obligated to go
Sure.
just to honor the president as well as just be part of the process.
Sure, because when are you gonna ever have that experience again? That's the other part of it for me. Just
Yes.
an individual being like, "Oh man, this is a part
Yep.
of the country that I live in that I have the very unique opportunity to be able to do it." But yeah, I do think that there was some part of that. Michael Levitt is like,
Thank goodness. Yeah. 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 Let
but
someone
I'd
else do
go.
it.
I'd go if I was invited.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it turns out there is a very long history of church leaders participating in inauguration. I had no idea. And so there's a second article that talks about this rich tradition over 150 years. The first inauguration that a church leader attended was in 1873, the inauguration of President Ulysses S. Grant.
Mm-hmm.
And Elder George Q. Cannon of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles and the Utah Territorial Delegate attended that. And over the course of 24 others, as recent as, I guess the most recent one was 2017, Elder D. Todd Christofferson and Gary E. Stevenson from the Quorum of the 12 Apostles attended.
Hmm. And that was President Trump's when he was 45.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So no,
Yep.
church leaders went when President Biden?
It's not listed here. So
Interesting.
I didn't
Oh,
see
no, it
that.
does say it. Note, church
does
leaders
it?
did not attend the
Oh,
2021
you're right. Because
inauguration of President Joe Biden as participation. Okay, so
it was due to the COVID pandemic.
yeah, so a little
Right.
bit of an
Makes
asterisk
sense.
because we were still, 9 months out of it.
Yeah. And
Interesting.
if you read through this article, we won't read all of them, but I'm sure the link will be in the show notes. There's some really interesting little vignettes about some of these. One in particular caught my eye. One of my favorite, are you allowed to have a favorite president of the church?
Yes.
Okay. My favorite president of the church was the president of the church when I was born,
Okay.
David O. McKay.
Oh, I thought Joseph Smith. Sorry.
Too funny.
Yeah.
And I loved President McKay for lots of different reasons. One, because he was the most snappy dresser and
Hmm.
still, I believe, probably the most well-dressed prophet we've ever had in the church.
Hmm.
But there was a point here that President Johnson evidently really liked President McKay, and they had become friends.
Interesting.
And so it says, let's see if I can find it. It says in 1965, Johnson invited President McKay to his inauguration because President McKay was one of his spiritual advisors. Their bond was so strong that Johnson once had Air Force One land in Salt Lake, went straight downtown to see President McKay, and then turned around after the meeting and got back on the plane to continue his travels.
Well, look at that.
President McKay attended the 1953 inauguration of President Dwight D. Eisenhower, but was unable to make it to Johnson's inauguration. And it turns out that his doctors told him he could not make the trip. He was 92 years old at the time. But it sounds interesting. I had never heard the story of President McKay and President Johnson, who had a certain reputation for being very different than a humble, kind human being. He was known to have quite the ego and quite the colorful language and lifestyle. And yet President McKay was close to him and one of his spiritual advisors. I think that's wonderful. And President Johnson, what party did President Johnson belong to? Do you remember?
Do I remember like I was alive? I have no idea.
Come on. Well, he was wasn't he President Kennedy's vice president? And when President Kennedy was assassinated, he took on the presidency.
That sounds right to me.
So he was a Democrat.
Okay. Wait a minute. So you're saying that President McKay was friends with a Democrat? Is that
He
what you were
was.
trying to imply?
That's exactly what I'm saying. And so I'm questioning the statement of you can't be a good member of the church and a Democrat at the same time.
Well, now you're questioning everything. It is interesting to note, though, with known Democrats within the 12 apostles, the different presidential inaugurations that they attended. Elder
Yeah.
Faust, known Democrat, attending President Bill Clinton's first inauguration, and Elder Uchtdorf attending President Obama's first inauguration. So that is
There's that. There's also the counterexamples, which I love. This one, 1961. Guess who attended President John F. Kennedy's inauguration?
Tell me.
Choose the president of the church least likely you think to ever go to a Democratic inauguration.
President Benson.
Exactly.
Wow, but President Benson would have been there because that would have been just post his time in under Eisenhower. Yeah, Eisenhower being the Secretary of Agriculture. So he could have just been there. It could have been completely unrelated. Hey guys, we're going out. We're going for a great steak dinner afterwards.
They do make the point that it was Elder Ezra Taft Benson, Quorum of the 12, and Secretary of Agriculture.
Yes, guaranteed.
I like the idea of him being there.
Sure. And he's leaning over. I don't think so.
Of course, he was Elder Ezra Taft Benson was at President Reagan's inauguration, and he was also President Ezra Taft Benson going to President George H.W. Bush's inauguration.
Oh, that's interesting. A president and a president, and they've got like sparring security. But who's this? What is going? We got to get this cleared.
Yeah.
It was the 80s. 80s was a wild time. You wanted to get to the new mission leaders. Now, I'm not sure if you caught this, and I haven't seen in the news that you sent me, but I want to say that I saw a correction about that. Is that part of the news that you want to cover?
No, it wasn't the correction so much as two things. I don't know about you, but I am addicted in the church news. I have to read the section about stake presidents called.
Yes.
And I have to read any news about mission presidents being called.
Okay.
And why is that?
Why is that for you? I know why it is for me. Why is it for you?
Why is it for you?
Because I'm a horrible person, and I'll tell you why.
We may be very similar here.
I send messages. A friend of mine from college, her husband was recently called to be the stake presidency. This is 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. And I sent her a message, unwarranted and not referencing anything on Facebook Messenger, that said, "Condolences, sorry for your loss." and then we laughed about it and we said, "Oh, how are you?" and all these things, right? Mm-hmm. Similarly with this mission presidency, previous guest of the Cultural Hall, Boyd Matheson, he was doing Inside Sources on KSL in the afternoon, a political show. He worked with Senator Mike Lee, and he is now a mission president, I think going to Indiana. And I messaged him and I said, I knew it when you abruptly left radio. He's like, I swear I had no idea. I said, sure, you had no idea. Sure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, my reaction is very similar. So I scan those to see if there's anyone I know so that I can harass them.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. And I love reading through it. But I did notice, and you should take warning and note here, Richie, and that is they announced all these mission presidents, 164 of them. They left 4 spots blank.
Okay.
They haven't been called yet. So watch the phone, because I don't know if you have caller ID for any of the Quorum of the 12, but you could still be called.
Well, a fair point. I could be called to Brazil, Fortaleza East. That's one of them. Mm-hmm. That wouldn't be too bad. That sounds warm, a little tropical.
Great. Yeah.
I could also be called to, I'm scrolling.
I've got a couple of them. Chile, Santiago South. Santiago's a beautiful city if you haven't been there. It's incredible.
Okay, I take it.
Yeah, Chile, Puerto Montt is yet to be announced.
Although if I was going to do one, I would do the 4th one, the one that we have not yet mentioned.
Washington,
Everett, Washington. Yeah,
beautiful place. Oh, what a beautiful mission. Holy smokes.
Great weather all the time. And so I don't think I'll be a mission president. Now, Matt Groh, and correct me because I only sort of briefly saw this. Matt Groh is like the historian for the church, or the church history. What do you call it? Like the church history. Now, hold on. I'm looking it up. because the information about him was incorrect. It's not the same
Oh,
Matt Groh.
yes, it's a different Matt Grove. That's
Yes,
correct. Yeah.
because the Matt Groh that is the historian who has been working with, like he helped write the first 50 years of the Relief Society, worked on the Joseph Smith papers, had a part in the first Saints volume, and then the volume 2, BYU graduate, all these different things. He's like 45. And not to say that you couldn't be 45 and
Oh,
do
some of
this.
these are. When I read a different source, the article for this week didn't have their ages in it. Some of
Mhm.
the ages in here are early 40s.
Yeah, real young. And I guess that makes sense to me when you have like, some of these places where the church is really still kind of growing. But I
Yeah,
but I feel
young.
like
Yeah.
when we glean from the Intermountain West that the ages of those individuals, not always, but
Hmm.
for the most part, unless they're people like Davis Smith who used to own Cotopaxi, because he's 50
Or Matt
maybe.
Holland.
Yeah,
Matt
or Matt
Holland
Holland,
was
but
in his
Matt
late
Holland's
40s.
yeah, yeah, maybe mid 50s, and he's also Elder Holland's son, right? Like there's an extenuating circumstance when you start to get to 40 or 50s as far as the call goes. Otherwise,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's like, my wife and I, we did well, where we're going to retire around 60 and we're going to go do this thing for the most part
True,
when you
true.
glean from the Mountain West.
Let's
So,
see. I have three friends that were called as mission presidents.
okay,
I'm trying to think ages. One of them is at least he's 3 years older than I am because he taught me in the MTC and he had
okay,
been home for almost a year.
okay,
And he was called probably when he was in his he was almost 60. And then another friend was called, he's just a year older than I am. So he had to be called when he was 54, 55.
okay,
Um, and then the third one, he was called when he had to be in his late 50s.
okay.
Interesting story on him. He had never been in a stake presidency.
Good.
Um, and they called him, and he is the most Southern gentleman I've ever met in my entire life. Deep Southern North Carolina accent. And where did
Mhm.
they call him to serve? Salt Lake City South.
Oh, interesting.
So he got to take his Southern accent to the south of Salt Lake.
Okay. Okay. See,
Wonderful.
so maybe you won't get any of those jobs and you're going to go to Everett, Washington. Would you do it?
Absolutely.
You
If they
would?
called me now and said we want to, absolutely.
You would without
Yes.
nothing? Just go?
No, no question.
Good for you.
No question at all.
Would your wife do it?
That's a good question. I hope so. Yes, I think she would. I
That's
think she
incredible.
would.
Good for you guys.
Yeah, yeah.
Have
No.
faith and all that stuff. Good for you.
What an adventure. I mean, messing around with 150, young men and women and, what a great thing to do. What a wonderful way to serve.
I want to touch on this real quick just because it continues to be what occupies at least some of my attention daily. The California fires.
Yeah.
There is an updated article from the Deseret News. Find a link in the show notes. It talks about that all church meeting houses are safe, at least at the printing of that. Latter-day Saints and neighbors still evacuated, but no member of the church, at least according to this article, has lost their lives. 48 church members have lost their homes. 750 members remain evacuated. That's down from an estimated 1,000. The Los Angeles Temple is still operating, and all missionaries are still continuing their service. Though I guarantee you some of that service looks differently than it had before.
Yeah.
As far as the fire in a larger glance, killed at least 24 people so far, 12,300 structures. And the church, this is interesting, has mentioned you can find a lot of opportunities wherever you live on justserve.org. So North Carolina, South Carolina, Utah, Indiana, any of these places, you can probably hop on and be able to see, hey, put together kits and get it to this, or this is the thing that you could do to be able to help those people out. And I know for a lot of people, they worry that the organization that they're working alongside is going to be reputable, is going to do what they're saying they're going to do, is going to make the most out of their time, their donation, their money, etc. Just Serve, a great way to be able to do something like that. And hearkening back to one of our early stories, wouldn't it be impactful for some of our kids to be able to look at something like this and go, we know that you are aware of this, and this is all the way over here, but we are going to care about someone you know, that
Thousands of
isn't in
miles
our
away.
community, thousands of miles
Yeah.
away. I think it's also
Yeah.
powerful for them to do something nearby, but I think that that could be a really great life lesson read. We should all do that, but because the story was about a kid, I decided to bring
Yeah.
it into that.
Yeah, our prayers, thoughts, hopes. I mean, we hope the fires somehow can get more contained. They continue to burn, and it's tragic what's happening.
There, I want to do a couple quick stories. I want you to take the football recruits so we can get that done. So be prepared to talk about that. That's for
Got it.
BYU. Ellis Ivory, there was a story. If you don't know who Ellis Ivory is, Ivory Homes is a home builder in the state of Utah. The president and CEO of that, the namesake of that. He also has been in charge of This Is the Place Heritage Park in Utah. It's where the statue of Brigham Young looking over the valley is. It is where the Black Pioneers, the newest memorial that's up there, Green Flake and others, that's what was up there. Tons of like youth conferences will sometimes do a handcar pull or stuff like that up there. Lots of weddings. It is right up by the Hogle Zoo, which is, just on the east side of the Salt Lake Valley. So in this article, he is retiring, going to be with family, some of those things. I thought maybe he would be a mission president. He's 82. It's a little bit old to be a mission president, but not impossible. I mean, if a prophet can be 100, come on, Ellis, but whatever. One of the thrusts of the article is that he talks about how he never made a dime working on this particular thing. And I think that's incredible. And I also would wish to point out that he is a multimillionaire multi-times over. And so, like,
he got a salary. He did take a salary every year
of $1 or something
$1.
like that.
It would be delivered by Elder Ballard, I think, personally, right?
Yes. I just think it's great. I just think like they're trying to make a story out of this thing that it's just like, this is the guy who he really did make it the great place that it is. So it's no sort of shade on him. But when we try and set it up that it's like he took no salary, the president of the United States, President Trump, President Biden, any one of them cannot take a salary. And you know what? They're going to be just fine. Maybe they don't make a time in, I don't know. I wish to just make sure and say, okay, that's cool, symbolically cool. But I guarantee you that if he needed that money at all, he would have taken a salary and been like, thank you, I'll take money for, running this organization, please and thank you.
No, I just love the image of Elder Ballard going to the park once, or the monument once a year, and pulling out his crusty old leather wallet that he's had for 50 years and opening it up, and receipts are falling out, and maybe a credit card, and he pulls out a crusty, sweaty $1 bill and hands it over for his annual salary. I just love that picture.
And what is wrong with us that we like to see those things in our mind's eye? Why are we so horrible?
It's actually cute. It's nice. It's I think it's showing that we're still simple humans.
Okay. All right. Great. That is a much more positive spin. Tell me about the recruits to BYU very quickly.
Yeah, so four-star linebacker recruit McKay Madsen commits to BYU over others like Oregon and UCLA. Arizona State, Boston College, Washington, some of those teams suck, so he would never go there. Others of those teams are pretty good. The thing about him is a very high demand recruit. BYU snags another great recruit. I'm sure that NIL money was involved. I'm sure that endorsements were involved. The interesting thing about McKay is he is equally known on defense as well as offense, and there's a rumor that he may play both offensive and defensive positions, and that is an extremely rare thing today in football.
Used to be far more common, is not at all.
Used to be common back in the 80s, a lot more common. Today, hardly ever at all, and it's almost uncommon as a collegiate athlete who plays two sports, which happens even less.
Okay.
But the other good thing, McKay has decided he wants to go on his mission first, so he will not be showing up in a BYU uniform for a few seasons yet.
Nice. And by the time he gets back, he'll be older than most college players and have grown into his body. So good for him. That's what I always love when they.
If that were true, BYU would have a lot more championships.
But we had one, and that's what's important.
Wait, that was before you were born.
No, it was not. 84? Come on.
Hey, if I'm old enough for Joseph Smith,
then listen, I'll be young enough. Fine. Yeah. What? I don't even know they had football in 84.
1984.
And
Watched
there was
it from
another player,
Port-au-Prince,
right?
Haiti.
There was another player that we got too, right? Isn't there another one? Just the one. That's fine.
I don't know the other one.
Okay.
There
No,
may
no.
have been. I have, like I said, I've been on a work trip for I left on Friday and didn't get home until yesterday and have pretty much ignored the world for those few days.
You are dismissed. I want to talk these real quick last two stories, so we're going to go just a little bit over an hour. One, this is in Tooele. Tooele, the number 200 temple, is in the Tooele Valley. It is west of Salt Lake.
It's one of the most exciting places in the valley, obviously.
Yeah, of course, because on New Year's Eve, there was an incident in a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints parking lot. Fireworks? Was that what it was? Some sort of crime or a burglary? Is that what it was? When the responding officer arrived, he learned that the complainant was no longer on scene. The officer met with the 17-year-old male along with a group of other juveniles who had been driving in the area of the church, and the officer was told that the group of juveniles in the vehicle held a megaphone and began yelling at another group of individuals in the same church parking lot. At juveniles in the, the male ran at their vehicle, and some of the individuals in the parking lot began throwing rocks at the vehicle. The juveniles reported that one of the males had held something up that was possibly a firearm. As the officer was working to obtain statements from the juveniles who were in the vehicle, another officer inspected damage to the vehicle. A detective then responded to the scene and interviewed individuals involved. Tooele City Police, that was a combination, I know how to say it, are still investigating the incident. Hansen said the incident appeared to be isolated, and there is no threat that there will be another megaphone incident in Tooele, so we can all rest easy.
Otherwise, this is a Tuesday night in the city I grew up in.
Yeah, the rocks is excessive. Don't throw rocks at
That
people.
was Tuesday night in the city I grew up in.
You would throw rocks?
No, I'm just saying this kind of thing would happen very regularly. I stopped throwing rocks at cars when I was 7, and my father yelled at us.
Yeah, as he should, as you deserved.
Yeah.
But
we outran the police officer that stopped when we hit his car.
Ooh, Verlin. How dare you? It's interesting to me because I remember a time, and I was maybe a early teenager, where one of the kids in like the priest quorum, he had attached a megaphone to his car, like a police kind of thing.
Yeah,
so they could talk from the inside of the car outside. All right, you're real stupid. Hey, watch where you're going. And that's the kind of stuff that happened when I was a kid. So
absolutely.
Yeah. I want to end on this. The dry January, for people who don't know, and I would anticipate there are some certainly within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that don't know about what a dry January is, because you drink a lot and celebrate a lot in December. That is alcohol. A lot of people say dry January. I'm going to give my body a break, going to reset for the new year. There is a soda shop in Minnesota, which, by the way, the name of their soda shop, I was brilliant. I thought it was so great. Kudos to this soda shop in Minnesota. Did you see what it's called?
Yeah, you've said the name several times now already. It's the Sota Shop,
Yes.
SOTA, that sells dirty soda in Minnesota.
And it's so great because it's the same thing as your swig, your thirsts, your, all of the things that we have in Utah. It's what people have seen in The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. And the thing that's so funny to me, because it's not different. They are literally saying, hey, Utah does it. Let's do it here. This is paraphrasing, but they're like, we weren't sure it was going to take here. And we've been pleasantly surprised that it has had a great reception. And I just want to go, so what you're telling me is that people in America like sugary sweet drinks and sugary sweet treats? That's the revelation to you? Sota shop in Minnesota? By the way, still so clever. But that's the revelation to you? That's the thing that you are wowed and astounded by? Of course. Now, maybe not the same, and maybe there's the drinking alternative, all of the whatever. But of course it will work.
I love the last section here. All of the drinks are named after 90s songs, and the most popular concoction, said Taylor, is the Stacy's Mom. I just love that that's the one, because if someone asked me to sing a 90s song, that may be the first one or two that comes to my mind. For some reason, I
Interesting.
love that song. But the Stacy's mom is Dr. Pepper with cherry and vanilla syrups and cream added.
I don't think I realized that that was a 90s song. I think I would have thought that was a uh, early
Early 2000s?
2000s.
Yeah, I guess it must be 90s. Stacy's mom has got it going on.
Do you want to hear some of the others of these? Because this is where my
Yes, I
mind
do.
goes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
All That She Wants. That's one of the drinks. All That She Wants is it's Ace of Base.
Yeah.
One Sweet Day. Basket Case, the Green Day. That's one of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
songs. Where It's At. I got two turntables and a microphone. That's one of their drinks. That's peach, passion fruit, and mango puree. Barbie
Yeah.
Girl, 19,
Yeah.
1979.
I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie
1979
world.
is Smashing Pumpkins. That's a
Yes.
that's a drink that takes really long to get to the point, like the song by the Smashing Pumpkins.
Yes. One of
The
my
lead
wife's
in.
favorite bands at the time.
Oh, the
Great
lead in
band.
on that is so
Oh, I
long.
love
My
that.
Hero, Regulator, Mount Up.
Oh, Regulator's a good one.
Yes. Tons. Oh my gosh, there's a whole other scroll down.
Oh,
Waterfalls, don't chase in that drink. Wicked Game, Raspberry Beret. I thought that was 80s. Intergalactic,
oh,
that's the Beastie Boys. So
yep.
great. Wannabe Satellite, that's Dave Matthews Band.
It is.
It's just a lot of it's a
Oh
lot of
man,
ice, very
what
little
good
drink
names.
in
I love
Satellite.
it.
Good for them. I wish I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. I
Oh,
wish I had a girl. If I did, I would call her. That first CD I ever bought.
I'm gonna first CD you ever bought, first album I ever bought. You want to take a guess?
The Beatles White Album.
No, no, that's before me.
Oh, is
Yeah,
it?
that's a so I did not appreciate the
I'm
Beatles because I
teasing.
don't I don't have an older brother or sister that appreciated the
Uh,
Beatles.
let's see.
My first album, I'll give you the year. I bought it in 1976.
So you're in the height of like a Bee Gees and ABBA, something
They
around
weren't
there.
quite to hit. Those
Okay,
came
okay.
78, 79. My
Uh,
first album
tell me,
was
tell me.
Hotel California by the
Oh
Eagles.
yeah, okay. Well,
And
and you're more of a classic rock guy than a
I,
oogie boogie.
well, I still have it.
Uh-huh.
And by the way, I have Saturday Night Fever, the
Of
album. I
course.
purchased it in 1978.
Uh-huh.
My second album has a good story behind it. It was Steve Miller Band's Fly Like an Eagle. And then one of my early albums was the second Steve Miller Band album, which I will tell you the story someday of how my dad informed me that I could not listen to it any longer.
Because of the Joker, and he's a smoker and a midnight toker.
No, no, there's several swear words in several of the songs on the
Oh,
album version,
okay.
and he shared his displeasure at one point in a very acute way.
Well, since we've gone off the rails, I'm going to tell you this about Steve Miller Band. I've seen Steve Miller Band live in concert.
I've seen them 3 times.
So if there are young ears, go ahead and turn this off. This isn't that inappropriate, but I don't want anyone to, young ears, go ahead and tune this
Yeah.
out, press pause, whatever. So, the first time, not in a magazine, not in a TV show, not a friend, anything like that, but that I ever saw breasts, aside from being, nursed as a small child, and maybe a National Geographic magazine that my grandparents had at our cabin.
Mhm.
But like the first time in real life ever seeing breasts was at a Steve Miller Band concert.
It tracks.
And the woman was probably 60 or 65. And I just remember, and I'm 14 or 15. This was Oldies Fest. It was a concert that they used to do in Salt Lake. This particular one was at Franklin Covey Field, which then became Smith's Ballpark, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I remember sitting there and I remember saying, I thought I'd feel differently about this experience in my 14 or 15-year-old vernacular. But I remember being like, I'm not sure. So kids, welcome back to the end of the episode. We hope that this has nourished and strengthened your body.
If you're not healthy enough to listen this week, you'll be healthy enough to listen next week.
And that when the time comes, you'll be able to travel home in safety. The hardest thing about it was I couldn't decide if I needed to talk to my bishop about it. That's a conversation for
Therapy,
a
my
time.
friend. You need therapy.
Yeah, it's a whole different kind of thing. In the meantime, Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, Debbie Wanless, Chocolate Cake Bites Podcast, and the Tiger with a U will be saving a seat for you
on the back row of the Cultural Hall.
Save me a seat, it's sure to be neat on the